That's it. Not tonight.
No, I mean, he's
tonight.
wrong about the clothes. He's looking extremely dapper tonight.
Thank you very much.
Very nice, well turned out. Don't you like him?
Well, it's good to shake hands with him on the way. I thought we'd be here all night, you know. So, hello.
Could have shook hands.
No, that would have took ages. It'd be like the beginning of a Premiership game now. You have to shake hands. No one really means it.
Can we talk about your ambition as a child? We used to imagine you were doing this show. You were on this show as a guest. Is that true?
Yes, when I was a kid, whenever I went to the toilet, it wasn't the kind of family that had reading matter in the toilet because it would have been eaten by rodents and turned into nests. So I used to sit and I used to fantasise that I was being interviewed by Michael Parkinson because you were big then.
Cheeky son.
No, but I was honestly a little kid living in a cancer. This is an outside toilet as well. It wasn't even, you know, wasn't even an electric light. And I used to sit there and you'd say to me, I read somewhere that when you scored your 17th goal in 2 games, that you actually thought... And you'd say things like, is it true about you and Susie Quattro? And honestly, I'm not making this up. Every time I went to the toilet, which was, you know, I was regular. We continued this seemingly endless interview. All the questions you came up with were amazing. I mean, I know it's a corny old thing to say, but it's amazing that I sat in that toilet thinking I was going to be on the Parkinson show, and here I am on the Parkinson show.
So where do you go now, though? I mean, this is...
Back to the toilet.
Life has finished.
It has, yes. Thank you very much.
What were you really wanting to be at that time? What was the fantasy, the real fantasy?
I wanted to be Elvis, originally, a job that was taken. And then I branched out. I wanted to be a pop star, and I sang in a few bands and stuff like that. And I couldn't really do that. And then I wanted to be a footballer, which I was really terrible at as well. So I ran out of options. And really, comedy was about the only thing I could do. Because people have been saying to me, oh, you should be a comedian, you should, as they fired me. And a headmaster said to me, he said, you know, I think if you carry on like this in your life, I honestly think you could end up being a tramp. That's a fabulous thing to say, isn't it? I said, you really think so? What are the hours like?
If you read about you, you came from this poor background. I mean, happy, but poor. I mean, you mentioned outside toilets and all that sort of stuff. But also, too, I mean, from the age of, 16 onwards, you'd kind of drifted, didn't you?
Yes.
You had no ambition. You drank an awful lot.
Yes.
In fact, you were a drunk.
Yes.
When did you first start drinking?
The first time I remember having a drink, I was about 13 or 14. You could find one pub that would serve you. And then, in fact, the bloke who used to serve me, the barman in the pub, also had an ice cream van, and I used to come out to school, buy a cornet off him, and then go in the pub and buy beer off him on the night. He was a fabulous he supplied everything. He was like an activity centre for me.
And when did it take over your life?
Well, I suppose when I started work, because my first wage packet was £14.50, which was a lot of money then. And so I'd got money to get absolutely blasted every night. And what I used to do, I didn't remember after about 9:30 any evening for about 2 years. And I have to say it was all right. I kind of liked it. No, I'm a terrible... If there's anyone watching who has a drink problem, they think, I'll watch this because it might just cure... It won't, because I look back on it with great affection.
Really?
Yeah.
But why?
Because
I mean,
happy
years,
days.
Happy days?
Yeah.
You can't remember them?
I remember up till 9:30. No, but I know you're supposed to say, yeah, it was... And there was some bad times.
Must have been.
But there was some absolute belters.
Well, what about bad times to your family? I mean, you were living at home, were you, at this time? Or...
When I started drinking, I was living at home. Yeah, I remember that it was a bit of a case of... You know the old joke that we didn't know he drank till he came home sober one night? And I was a bit like... I remember we had all these milk bottles was outside the next-door neighbour's house. We hadn't seen the old-age pensioner for months. I don't know what happened. But I arrived, and I fell over, and I broke all these milk bottles. And that was when my dad come out and said, you've been drinking, haven't you?
And you were kicked out then, were you?
Oh, no.
No? You stayed at home?
Well, the old man was drinking a fair amount as well. Yeah, it was a marvellous family tradition. But like I say, my dad was a kind of a joyous drunk. He'd come in at night, have a big row with my mum, and then he'd say, anyway, before I go to bed, if I had my life... And she'd say, never mind, he'd go, shut up! Over, I George, get back in that chair. Hold still. And he'd do a couple of numbers before he went to bed. He would end the day with a song, a row and a song, and go to bed.
Then what stopped you drinking? I mean, there was a moment in your life where you actually said, no, I've got to stop.
Occasionally, I suppose... I'll tell you, now, this sounds like a joke, but it isn't. I used to have sherry for breakfast, right? And what I would do... don't knock it till you've tried it, Michael.
No.
I'm guessing you haven't. I used to have it on the bedside table with the radio, and I'd wake up in the morning and I could hear this horrible scratching noise, you know. And I used to think it was something at the door, but it was my tongue moving about in my mouth. And I used to reach across and I'd put the radio on and grab the sherry and bring it. And I'd drink that much sherry before I got out of bed. But it puts a spring in your step.
And then you went on to Pernod.
And then I moved on to Pernod, and I thought, this is getting out of hand. Yeah. And that was, honestly, that was when I first thought, you know, is this going to kill me in the end?
And then you decided, well, give it up. I mean, it was just one moment in time.
Well, what happened, I didn't have one of these... I wish I could tell you that I had a moment when a beam of light came through a church window and I thought, I'll never drink again. But what happens, I got the flu and I just couldn't eat or drink for about 2 days. And I thought, well, I've done 2 days. I wonder if I could do 3 days. And it started like a gradual, slow, grinding sobriety steadily dragged me into the mire.
You were an alcoholic. You are an alcoholic. I mean, were you...
How dare you?
...classified as such? Did you go to AA meetings and things like that?
I didn't go to AA meetings. Oh, I didn't drive then. I was too drunk. But I went... I didn't go to any of those things. I did it all myself. I was a self-made drunk. And I stopped drinking myself as well. But I do honestly think... I like to think I've got it to fall back on if things go wrong.
If you enjoy drinking so much as you said you have, I mean, why don't you go back to it?
Well, I might go back. I'm serious, I might go back to it. I mean, I've been frightened because I would like... I have a friend who's a compulsive gambler, right? And he said to me, he stopped gambling, and then he thought, you know, I haven't beaten gambling until I can gamble a little bit. And then I'm in control. He said, so if you just stop drinking, in fact, you're not in charge. You've just backed off. If you can drink a little bit, then you've, you know, won. You're in control. But I've never quite summoned up the courage.
No.
And I don't know if I want to drink a little bit.
No.
The trouble is, when you're a drinker, you go on these fabulous... You go this high, and then you have to respond in low. But when you're a non-drinker, like I am now, you go on a straight line. You know what I'm saying? And people say, well, at least you can remember what you did last night. And I say, yeah, nothing. And that's what it's like. So I'm missing. Totally.
Now, tell me about... So you didn't get on my chat show, so you made your own chat show.
Yeah, that's what I did.
That's what you did.
Yes, I waited in that toilet long enough.
Long enough, and you decided, well, it's easier to get my own chat show.
Yes.
Right.
Well, this is not how at all I imagined it. I mean, there weren't two other people in the toilet.
No, what... What I'm going to ask you about doing the talk show is, I mean, you started off on being a sort of comedian doing a talk show. We do a comedian's act, basically. But now you're actually doing interviewing. I mean, so you had a kind of a conversion there, didn't you? Well,
when I started doing a chat show, I didn't really know how to do it. Because I hadn't... You came from a journalistic background, didn't you? So you were used to asking questions. Yeah. I wasn't in that. So to me, they were just like the front row of the audience. So I would talk to the guest like I might talk to a slightly unruly heckler. And then I thought, this is no good, because I'd watched the show back and they never got a word in edgeways, you know what I mean? It's kind of opposite of this. And so I thought, well, I have to learn how to be an interviewer. So I actually come the third series, I thought maybe it's possible to combine the two. So I did listen, and I started to think, well, no, it's their show, and I'll hold back a bit, and what I'll try and do is learn how to make them funny. But, of course, you can't do it.
No.
Don't you feel you're let down on a regular basis by guests?
Not at all.
No, come on.
No.
They must have guests... Don't you ever turn to a guest and just want to go, shut up?
Well, an injector seat would be a good idea, but
yes.
I admire Meg Ryan. You're Matthew Kelly.
Yes. God, you won, didn't you?
No, I don't know about that.